Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Ramblemancy, where we were gonna have a John, and then we weren't gonna have a John, and then we have a John anyway. So,
Hello.
but
I'm on
also,
painkillers.
but we are also joined by the one and only Bri de Dannan. Bri, welcome. Thanks for coming and talking Star Wars with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Actually,
Me too.
I'm very, very, very excited about this. I obviously, as those of you know, have never once ranted about Star Wars in my entire life. So,
Yeah,
I didn't even get all the way through that
topic,
sentence,
John.
Bri. I didn't even get all the way through that sentence.
Tonight's topic is one that is deeply unfamiliar to Lucas, a thing that
Yeah.
he has never experienced any media of. So Lucas here tonight is going to be the person that we are constantly explaining things about Star
Right.
Wars to.
Yes. Yeah. We should definitely do a Ramblemancy that's just explains Star Wars badly. The episode. It's just the whole thing is
No.
incorrect Star Wars.
There's
Sometime
magic
when I
in
haven't.
space, and only some people can use it. But actually, everyone can use it. But I love it.
Yep.
So the magic is actually a zero-sum game in that the more that some people have of it, the less other.
It's actually a good
Really?
explanation.
That's what the wars in the stars are about.
Yeah.
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 Is that everybody's trying to fight over this limited resource and like, wait,
But it's,
did
like, not
Zack
really
did
limited.
did Zack Snyder write this plot? I'm sorry. Anyway,
It's
anyway,
not really limited. They only think it's limited because they don't understand it.
yeah.
I'm
It's
not
also
the
it's all it's
Jedi
just
they deserve,
it's a
but I'm the
thinly
one that-
veiled metaphor for like the U.S. and oil in the Middle East. Anyway, it's
Oh, Christ.
written by Zack Snyder. Anyway, moving on.
Like, when you started this in the 70s, and now it's like 50 years later, and a billion people have touched it.
Mhm.
Listen,
But yeah, what better way? Nico said, I find it incredibly funny that we're doing a Star Wars Ramblemancy on International Women's Day of all days. But what better way to celebrate International Women's Day than to have one of our very favorite women here on the channel to talk to us about stuff. So
We have
absolutely,
a woman. Hello?
we planned this.
We planned this. We have a woman. No, it's okay. Well, we're only going to talk about Ahsoka. It's okay.
Perfect. I'm down.
probably will.
Really,
cheers
the
to that.
coolest characters in Star Wars are women. So let's be honest.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
In all honesty, so Star Wars actually, I can look back on it, and I think Star Wars is genuinely my very first ever hyperfixation. So like, I think, because like before that, the only media I consumed was like Sesame Street and the Muppets,
Yeah.
and like you like those things in the same way that kids like kind of anything that you put in front of them a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was
Sure.
not like like Star Wars was an obsession. I was, and I feel like I've told this story before. Probably the last time we talked about Star Wars is we're just breezing right past announcements today because we don't have any. We don't have any.
So-
The main announcement
Yeah,
is
looking back
Star
at the
Wars.
fondant.
Yeah. The main announcement is actually no, I don't think we're doing this next week because I'm.
Yeah, you're not
I
here
have
next
thing-
week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a big doctor's appointment in the morning, and I will not be up to Ramblemancy.
Correct. So that's the main announcement. No Ramblemancy next week. That's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to what I was saying just now. No, I think it was I was 5 years old and I was sick. I had a cold, and my neighbor brought over Star Wars, and that was I was sick and I was miserable, but then there was Star Wars, and it turned into a lifelong obsession after that. With a bit of a lapse between 2015 and 2019, but then it came back. Anyway, and we're good now. Anyway, that's
It's funny that you and I have the similar story. I was also sick, and I was
Yeah.
also 5 or 6 years old. Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about this before. You and I have had this conversation because now that you're
Yeah.
saying that, I was certain that I'd told somebody that story, and they were like, "Hey, that's exactly what happened to me," and I'm pretty sure it was you.
Yeah, it was. I was
Watching-
watching it, and it was definitely like it's formative, comforting,
We got Caldwin asking the real
also-
questions down here, asking the important
I
questions.
don't like it.
Same.
I don't like it. It's jizz.
Here's okay.
Always jizz.
Here is my blanket opinion on Disney Star Wars, and please understand that when I say this, this is my overall opinion, but there are huge, like, there's this is painting with the broadest brush that I can possibly muster. So there are massive exceptions to this. But I will say my general opinion with about Disney Star Wars is that they've spent a lot more effort than I think they needed to sanding off the rough edges of Star Wars that over the last like 50 years we've come to know and love as for how weird and quirky they were.
Yeah.
And they've spent a lot of time sanding off the rough edges. The big examples. Jats is a great example. Another example is explaining why the Death Star blew up from just one shot. I didn't think we need to do that. And also explaining Han Solo's last name. We have spent like 40 some odd years totally accepting that Solo was a legitimate surname within Star Wars, and then they felt the need to explain it. And I'm like, nope, this didn't need to happen. Sorry, that was a question nobody had. So,
like in the same universe. Hold on, I'm gonna in the same universe as characters who have names like fucking, I don't know, Gar Janrin or something.
oh,
like that,
do you
or
want to like
Oro Kim? I'm looking at a Star Wars
Sleaze
name.
Bagano? Sleaze Bagano?
Yeah,
Sleaze
Sleaze Bagano.
Is a real
You know,
actual Star Wars name.
Solo's like a thing where I'm like, yeah, no, like you.
A little bit on the
someone
nose, absolutely, but so is the entirety of Star Wars.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
somebody walked up to me and said, "Hi," in real life in today, and I had never seen Star Wars, and said, "Hi, my name's Han Solo," and I'd be like, "Oh, that's probably some weird like Ellis Island bastardization of like Hans Ola something, like some sort of really vaguely Germanic name."
Yeah,
That just sounds like that could be a guy's name.
It could be a guy's name.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, you say Sleaze Bagano, and I'm just like, want to buy some death sticks?
Hey, you want to buy some death sticks?
Oh my gosh.
I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know,
go
I
ahead.
think the thing like the start like them how they blew up the Death Star is a little interesting, but the other ones are like, okay, you don't really need to know. It's like
It
they're
is.
just silly things. The Death Star thing is a little interesting. It's just like, oh, I guess that's how mechanics work if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of Star
Yeah.
Wars. But other than that,
Well,
it's like whatever.
I think it would have not changed anything about the
No.
story of Rogue One if they just had Galen Erso being like the guy who was like getting them the plans from inside the Death Star, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that would have changed anything about the story of, like, a little bit with the Jin Erso stuff. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, it didn't need to happen.
I don't think narratively that the impact of that changes. Like,
No.
they made it like Galen's like last great gift to his daughter that he built this
Yeah.
flaw into the Death Star. And I'm like, it has the same impact as him going, I have built this thing from the ground up.
And I know it has a
Because
weakness.
they have made
Yeah.
me, and I if you shoot it right here, it will blow the fuck up.
Yeah.
It has the exact same impact, at least
Yeah.
to me, like as an audience. Like
Truly.
I feel like
Yeah.
if it had been that way, I would
And, like,
it would have been received the same
for
way.
for years and years before that movie came out, there was always like the discussion of like, well, that seems like a design flaw. It's like, what do like that was a 1 in a million shot. Like the rebels had like it was a last ditch effort for the rebels. Like they had no other options. It wasn't like this is plan A. It's like, no, there's a big fuck off Death Station coming to kill all of us and end the rebellion, and this is the one and only chance we have. Like it didn't need explaining. And then when it sort of undercuts Luke's whole thing with like, yeah, the reason that he made it is like, turning off the computer and trust, because like all of Star Wars, there's definitely some strong arguments for Star Wars main tension being like, human nature versus machine, right? Like there's so
Right.
much of that in there, and that's like when Luke turns off his computer at the end and trusts the Force. That is like a big major like moment. And yeah, it's just it
They
didn't.
used to bullseye womp rats in a T-16 back home.
I mean, it's like what Luke Skywalker did to the Death Star is the equivalent of a Corvid that you kind of pissed off 6 years ago. Like coming for you and throwing a rock at your car as you drive away at such a perfect angle that it bounces up your tailpipe, gets into your engine at exactly the moment that the piston goes up after traveling through your entire exhaust system because you hit a pothole at the exact moment to allow it to do that, and then causing your engine to fucking explode.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Luke Skywalker did to the Death Star.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think yeah, like that's kind of my understanding as well. That I love someone's description that the Force was the only way to take it down. A computer could never have made that shot. Even Gavin Drace was an ace pilot, had a target lock, and he didn't get it. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of what I thought too, and I think I don't know. I think I have other problems with the film Rogue One, but they're mostly like from a narrative writing perspective as opposed to, but far less than I do with many of the other Star Wars films from the same era is all I will say about that. So
Yes.
yeah, because at least
I personally liked Rogue One because it kind of showed it, for at least in the character aspect of it, it showed a lot of like really interesting like how other
totally.
people interpret the like lore of the world, which is why I really liked it.
Yeah.
So we got Andor because of it, and Andor is my favorite piece of media. Not piece of Star Wars media.
Yeah.
I want to be clear. Andor is, I think, like my favorite piece of media. Full stop.
We also got to see
love
Andy
that series so
Serkis
much.
come back in like a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Because like Snoke was what he was. I wasn't as disappointed as everybody else was that Snoke died like at the way he did, but I will admit that he didn't really serve much of a purpose at all in those movies. So I'm glad that we got to see Andy Serkis back in a meaningful way.
Yeah. I'm just really excited for whatever they're going to do in the TV shows that are going to subtly rewrite the plot of the movie of 7, 8, and 9, like they did with the prequels and the midichlorians.
Absolutely.
I'm just really excited for them to like slowly write that out, being like, that happened, but not really. Here's what actually happened and why it's cool and interesting.
Well, and it's funny because that you bring that up, right? Because when I said like, I it was sort of tongue in cheek, but it was actually this is actually how I felt in like at the time, which was that like Star Wars was a lifelong obsession of mine, and then Episode 7, 8, and 9, I was like, maybe Star Wars isn't for me anymore, and like that's sad, but it's okay. And then the TV show started coming out. I'm like, no, just kidding. I still love Star Wars. I'm here for it, and like. Yeah. And that was truly the turning point for me, like the second turning point for me, coming back around, right? And yeah, like that was I think for me it was a huge turning point because long before they even did Episode 7, and Freeman, maybe John, I don't remember if we talked about this at the time, but Freeman can definitely back me up on this, that I was saying I think Star Wars would be better as TV shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like it's hard, like such an interesting universe, and yet we rarely get a chance in the movies because of like the time constraints for movies to explore it in any really meaningful or interesting way. And so I thought, a TV show is a better way to get to see that. And I think the world, the universe of Star Wars is so much better suited, I think, towards a sort of more serial format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
We were. Oh, what were you saying, John?
I was just going to scroll all the way back up to some of the questions that people asked.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I had a good one that I appreciate, which is a simple one. I said I had this one preloaded. Favorite starship? Everyone on the panel, chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that one, and I've been thinking about it, and I will say I don't know enough about the actual mechanical workings of the Star Wars universe to have a better answer than any of the main character ships.
I have an answer from Legends, from like the Legends canon. Yeah, you know what, Ike? I think I can agree with you. From the current canon, I think the A-Wing is dope as shit. It's my favorite.
Was also...
It's my favorite ship in Star Wars Squadrons. So that's not true. No, that's not true. It's too hard for me to control. No, never mind. But it is still a dope ship. Rogue
I
Shadow,
really like
yeah.
I really like Mando's tiny ship.
Yeah.
Just because it's
Yep.
really funny to me.
Yeah, like the modified like Naboo fighter that he
Yeah.
has.
Yeah, it's just really funny to me.
Mine is, I think it's the Jade Shadow, which was one of Mara Jade's ships. She's had a lot of them. She had a lot of them. She had the Shrike, and then she had the Jade Saber, and then the Jade Shadow. She's had a lot of ships, but the Jade Shadow, I think, for me was the coolest one. I think it's also the one that lasted the longest. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna try to bust out some like nerdy ass like specific starship classification, and then I realized I don't actually remember any. There was a
Yeah.
time when I
used
would have
to-
been able to pull that right off the top of my head. But
So, like, I was absolutely like a Dragonology girly, right? But I was also a Star Wars spaceship compendium girly. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
definitely had one of those. I think it got sold in a garage sale at some point.
that sucks.
Much to my deep sorrow. I think even at the time, I think it was one of those deals where like it might have been like I was away in college. I was like, no.
Yeah.
My book that told me what kind of engines and what kind of fuel a bunch of capital ships in Star Wars use. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to have one of those.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say Millennium Falcon because everyone, well, not everyone, of course, but I don't know. I think the thing that made, I think just going on that ride at Disney made me like it another way too, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, that's fair. A different answer, and I'm not sure if this is canon within the new. I know I've seen it in Clone Wars, but I'm not sure if it's canon. Which is Lando's ship, the Lady Luck. It is it's a luxury yacht, and fun fact, I actually based a lot of the design of Awakener from Infinite Horizon on the Lady Luck. So yeah, because it's just a cool ship. It's a cool looking ship, very like sleek and cool looking. Yeah.
Non-Star Wars fan associate my nickname with the stone. Hey. And Cauldron. I agree. The Razor Crest did also come to mind for me. I genuinely think the Razor Crest is really cool.
I really liked the Razor Crest in the Mando show a lot, and then I was really sad when it got destroyed, but then when he got a new ship, and it was this tiny little fast motherfucker with only one pod and then a droid pod that he put Grogu in, made me incredibly happy.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the most impractical ship I've ever seen, and it's so fucking funny.
Yeah, it's literally just a decommissioned Naboo starfighter that he replaced the droid slot with a little dome for Grogu. And
it's so good. And only Grogu can walk around in it. Like, he can't even, like, go down into the ship. It's so funny.
I truly, like...
He made a fucking hamster ball for Grogu and stuck it in the
I genuinely... This is the thing that bothers me about that, okay? I don't know how Grogu goes from the pod to, like, the cockpit, because it definitely happens. It happens.
It happens for sure. And I think it's a tube.
Yeah, it must be a tube.
It's just
it has to be a tube. Yeah.
It's a slide.
It's a slide for him to go in.
So it's not so much a hamster wheel, so much as it is one of those, like, hamster, like, jungle gym things that they have the plastic tubes that they're all connecting to each other. It's, so it's like...
He just waddles down.
Yeah, there's like a little metal slide, the one that, like, you went down as a kid, and if you were wearing shorts, your fucking legs stuck to it. And then on the other side, there's just a little plastic tube you can crawl back up through.
It's his baby seat, absolutely.
It is his baby seat.
Yeah.
I just love it so much. It's so impractical, and it like gives it like I know I can like even tell that it gives Mando just a sense of like, ooh, this is stupid, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like I get to go so fast.
You know what's so funny about that is it's the same vibe. It's the same vibe a little bit as like the new dad who now has to exchange his favorite car for the minivan.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
This cool, like, decommissioned, like, you know, modified freighter that's got, like, all these secret compartments for, like, guns and like this and that. And it's like I guess I can fit some of my guns in this tiny ass starfighter.
I get that some
Mando-
guns in this tiny
yeah.
starfighter, and also I get to go faster than anything.
Din Djarin is just like but what do I do with all my weapons? And then it's like, wait, no, I am the weapon. Never mind, we're good.
Yeah. He's not gonna do bounty jobs, Matt. He's just not. He's not going to. He's a dad now.
No, it's actually, you know what? It would work perfectly fine if he puts like a hull mounted carbonite like holder thing, right? Because then he like look, they're
trailer.
Fucking Star Wars equivalent of like putting a trailer hitch on your Corvette and then pulling a trailer.
fucking most LA motherfucking shit I've ever seen.
Is that? Hold on. All right. We've got a small Corvette coming, or a small starship coming out of hyperspace. It's is that Allie Beardsley? Like...
No, see, here's the thing. Now I would then need the scene. I would require the scene of Mando as being like Space Dad, right? With his trailer, taking the Star Wars equivalent of a ratchet strap, strapping down the perps and the thing, and then going, that's not going anywhere. And then that's I would need the
giving it a little like flap.
Yeah.
All right. It's on the hood of my car. We're good. Fuck.
Oh god.
No, I think his probably jobs are a lot less finding people and probably more finding things, probably at this point. But I don't know what he's doing. He's helping restore a fucking culture on a planet.
Yeah.
And then also, he's not really doing that, but like
he's working. He's like, what is it? Where it left it? Because he's like gonna be working, taking jobs from the New Republic, or something like that.
I can't exactly remember what he's doing now.
Because he was like talking.
He gets his own house.
Right, but he also like talked to Carson Teva, and like talked to him about like, taking jobs, but from the Republic.
Yeah,
so,
I think he's probably gonna take jobs from the Republic, or like be the sheriff of the Rim Worlds, probably.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's probably what he's gonna be.
I'd be into that.
Yeah, anybody from the Rim Worlds be like, hey, Mando, these motherfucking pirates.
Speaking of which, can we talk about fucking Timothy Oliphant's character? Like, he died and then wasn't dead at the end of the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
What, like, are they just gonna leave it there? What are they gonna do?
No.
What are they doing with this?
I'm pretty sure, like, they're definitely not gonna leave. Like, they're definitely not gonna leave it there. Like that was like the end stinger for a reason. It's gotta be.
That's gotta come back.
Cad Bane killed him.
Yeah.
And they're not just gonna leave Cad Bane alone.
Right.
Cad Bane's fucking cool as hell. He's awful, but cool as hell.
Literally earlier today, I was watching The Bad Batch, and I texted Bri, and I just said, it was Bri, period, Cad, period, no, Cad, and in parentheses, and I cannot stress this enough, motherfucking period, Bane.
Yeah. Yeah. They
were like, so this show is basically like a space fantasy with Western and samurai vibes, but do we have any actual, like, super on-the-nose gunslingers in this show? Wait a minute. Damn. And then they just produced Cad Bane. Yeah.
Cad Bane was, like, had some really awesome episodes throughout all of Clone Wars' run.
Yeah.
Had some really cool episodes in there.
I think he at one point kidnapped Ahsoka. If I remember correctly.
Almost. Who hasn't kidnapped Ahsoka? Like,
well,
in fairness, I say that, but in fairness, I'm pretty sure Obi-Wan and Anakin got kidnapped way more than Ahsoka ever did in Clone Wars.
100%. Ahsoka,
way more.
Was in custody. It was because she accidentally got there. Not because anyone tried to kidnap her, except for Cad Bane specifically.
Yeah. Also, Geek Outs, I believe no one no one here is caught up on Bad Batch.
No.
I haven't started season 3 yet, so mainly because I want to let a few of them build up before I start watching. But
Yeah, I haven't watched any of it, sadly. I'm going to eventually, but I haven't watched it yet. My most recent thing that I watched was Ahsoka. Um, and so I have that on the brain.
okay, let's talk about it,
Yes!
I want to talk about this. I want to
I
talk
want to talk
about.
about it so bad!
Yeah. Bree, you have so many things to say, is like to the point where we almost started this whole discussion way before we even went live. So I'll let you say things about it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna preface this as that Ahsoka's been my favorite character since the beginning. I loved Star Wars since I was a kid. With you guys talking about how you got into Star Wars, Star Wars was the first physical person media that I was interested in as a child. As everyone knows, I watched a lot of cartoons and anime, but that was the first one that I with people in it that I really enjoyed. And then a cartoon came out of it, and I was like, "Fuck yes!" As a child, but Ahsoka was there. So this new season of Ahsoka was everything that I could have wanted. Because I love also the Rebels. The Rebels is so good.
It's so good.
Rebels is so good.
It had a bit of a rough start, like the first couple of episodes, but then it just
Yeah.
goes immediately awesome and just keeps getting better the whole time.
It's so good. It's so good. And
I just met baby Hera, little teenage baby Hera in Bad Batch today, and I'm like, oh, you have a French accent in this one.
it is so good. But we'll get to that. So the thing about Ahsoka, the end of Ahsoka is wild because if you haven't watched Rebels or haven't finished Rebels, there's this thing in Rebels called the world between worlds. And that's apparently where Force ghosts are from. Which is so cool!
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool! And it's also the ethereal plane in between galaxies. Which is also dope as fuck. And I love it so much. And then they brought it back for Ahsoka, and now Ezra and they saved Ezra, and now Ahsoka and Sabine are on in a different galaxy, away from everybody, and it's wild, and I just can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good, but
and
the implications.
The coolest thing about that for me is that Ezra, this kind of I haven't watched Rebels, but I know enough about Ezra through osmosis and hearing things about it. Now we get this super cool experience of Ahsoka and Sabine standing on a planet that is essentially one of the birthplaces of magic in the Star Wars universe. And now we get to watch them figure it out, do it live. I'm so pumped for that.
Yeah.
It also goes into the Night Sister stuff, which also the video games have been going into more, and I haven't played the video game, so a lot of this stuff is I know from osmosis because I am a lore fiend. So if I'm getting the specifics incorrect, let me know. But just the fact that the Night Sisters came from the galaxy that Ahsoka and Sabine are now in, and then traveled to the other the current galaxy where most of Star Wars happens, and then thousands of years ago, and then populated that world with Force users is insane to me and just so cool. And I want to know why those 3 Night Witches were still in that other galaxy. Why?
So there's Night Sister stuff is very cool, and I like the fact that they've tied it into this. I also love the fact that so before the sort of slate wiping that came from the previous canon, Clone Wars had done the arc on the planet whose name I can't Mortis. With the father, the son, and the daughter, that arc.
Yes.
And then they wiped the Legends slate clean, but that was still canon because it was in Clone Wars, or it was in Clone Wars. Was it also? Did it come up in Rebels? I truly don't remember. I haven't watched Rebels recently.
Ezra found a temple on that planet that they were all on. That was an old Jedi temple that had a relief of the
Right.
father, son,
Right.
and daughter.
Yes. Okay.
And he activated it somehow. I don't remember how. He activated it somehow, and he was able to go into the world between worlds, and that's how
Right.
we discovered it. And Ezra figured that
So-
out, and then Palpatine tried to get into it, and he destroyed the temple. And then Ezra destroyed the temple because he's like,
Right.
I don't want Palpatine to have this power.
So
Anyways.
the thing that was cool about that is that in that it's always shocking to me when I think about this, but in that brief period of time in between when those episodes of Clone Wars aired and the wiping of the legends like from canon, there was a whole series of books that came out that built on that lore. And I honestly don't know which one started and which one came first, but either way, it's a narrow period of time within which they could work to make that happen. And the whole thing with the father, the son, and the daughter led into the Abeloth arc, which Abeloth was this fourth one of them called the Mother, who was a mortal being. She was a mortal being who was there, sort of like she fell in love with the father, and that sort of became a mother figure to the children. And one day she became aware that these were immortal beings who were going to far outlast her, and she couldn't deal with that fact. And so there was like the reason that the son and the daughter were what they were was because of there was like the font of knowledge and the pool of power, or maybe I have those reversed. Either way, and the father kept the balance, and the mother basically was told that she could do anything, right, but she couldn't do any of those things because they would throw the force out of balance, basically. So what she did instead is she did both, and that transformed her into like this eldritch horror force monstrosity. And they sealed her away along with the Killiks, who are a race of insectoid beings who are older than like one of the oldest known species in the galaxy. And they sealed her away in the Maw, which was like a black hole cluster and whatever in the old canon. But what I think is very cool is that because that stuff was done in Clone Wars with like the father, the son, and the daughter, they had essentially like they wiped the slate clean of honestly some of my favorite stories within the old Legends canon. But there was still a window into current canon from that stuff, and I've seen a lot of people like speculating that might be where they're going with Ahsoka, with the Abeloth stuff. I don't know that I buy that 100%.
I'm not sure about the Abeloth specifically, but I definitely think that they're doing the father, son, daughter because that's already been that's already been shown, and I definitely think they're doing stuff obviously with World Between Worlds because one, Ahsoka went there in that season because that's where she dealt with her Anakin trauma. Anakin, as Force Ghost Anakin, said, "Hey, let me make you deal with this trauma because I know what I did and I'm still your master and I'm gonna fucking fix you."
Yeah.
And then, and I love that for Anakin.
That was, I have to say, that those scenes, like with Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds, were some of the fucking most incredible, like, scenes I think like in that entire show. And there's a lot of outstanding stuff in Ahsoka. But my God, there were a couple of cuts where I had to pause afterwards. Like one of them I think was like Anakin walking away from her, and then there's like turning into Darth. There's like
such a good
flash,
shot,
like a shell going off, and he was like Vader for just an instant.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I got fucking goosebumps, chills. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. I'll also say this. Sorry, just because I want to. I'm having so many different thoughts simultaneously, but I want to.
I know that's the problem.
With Matt, Disney said Matt said Disney decanonized the Legends in 2014, and the Clone Wars first aired in 2008, and that's true. However, the Mortis arc, I believe, happened in like season 3 or 4 of Clone Wars, which means that there was a 2-year window, more or less, during which there was overlap between the Clone Wars and the Legends canon to do that. So, like, it was wild. Anyway, the thing that I wanted to say was about the World Between Worlds. In the old canon, No, I appreciate it, Matt. That's what that... I was using your... sorry, I wasn't arguing with you either. I was just using your dates as to put it into a tight... to give us, like, specific example of what I was talking about before, which is that it was a real tight turnaround. And so, anyway, but the World Between Worlds thing, in the old canon, there is a scene, and this whole arc with Abeloth takes place after the death of Mara Jade. There's a whole scene that takes place, and it is a very similar scene to, like, Ahsoka and Anakin on, like, the bridge with Luke talking to Mara Jade, who's trying to, like, basically his dead wife, who is trying to, like, convince him to come with her, and it turns out it's Abeloth trying to tempt Luke to become part of her, and it's horrifying. The implications of that are so, like, spooky that there could be something living in the World Between Worlds that is, like, some sort of eldritch force monstrosity. That's so fucking cool.
That'd be really cool.
What an absolutely terrifying notion.
That is so cool. I really like that. And that's incredible. But I just... yeah, just the implications of the World Between Worlds is really interesting to me. And as Ike said earlier, he was like, I'm much more interested in, like, the spaceships and the technology that I am the Force Lord. I am the exact opposite.
Me too.
Space Wizards, my entire... fill me in it. I love space wizardry so much. That's what I've loved about Star Wars. And I know that, like, the Jedi are so overplayed, which is why I really like the Grey Jedi, because I've never subscribed to the light/dark, because that's stupid. And anyways,
and also, we were talking about this on Sunday, too, which is one of the things that I think recent Star Wars media have done in a really interesting way, is painted, like, the Jedi Order as almost, like, the Sith obviously bad, right? Yeah. But in some ways, recent media has painted the Jedi Order as, like, they're kind of just, like, the opposite. Like, if these guys are, like, super evil in the, like, very overt way, these people are evil, or, like, in the evil, complacent, like, or the bureaucratic kind of way.
Governments are an institution no matter what side they're on. And I love that about it. Like, whether or not it's, like, has to do with the Force or not. The Force is just a tool that everyone's, like, I love that it's been kind of using, like, the Force is just a tool that these different ideological sides have been using. And, like, the whole two Sith thing has, like, I don't know if it's still a thing because of decanonization, but it was, like, a thing that a Sith decided. It's not even, like, a rule. It's just a thing that a Sith decided at some point. Because he's like, I don't want to share my power.
Okay, I'm sorry. I cannot hold in, because, like, between what you're saying and what Chad is saying, I cannot physically contain my. I'm gonna do my once in a blue moon rant.
Go ahead.
So here's.
I'm gonna put it in chat real quick.
Yeah, go for it. Go ahead, do it. Okay.
Cool.
Here it is.
I'm still listening.
Originally, the concept of a Grey Jedi. This is why I hate the concept. It's not because I don't hate it from a conceptual standpoint. I hate it because the concept of a Grey Jedi was not... Yeah, okay, shut up, Jay.
just keep going.
The concept of a Grey Jedi was not someone who pulls from the light side and also the dark side. So the Jedi Order is sort of as we see it in the films, is a unified sort of... So, like, you know how, like, there's so many different styles and schools of, like, kung fu and things like that, right? And, like, right, the Jedi Order is like that. There are lots of different schools, lots of different versions of Force users. The Jedi Order is essentially, like, a unified kind of orthodoxy, if you will, if you want to put it in terms of...
It's
right?
a religion about this thing.
Yeah, and it's basically...
Kind of. Or
it is, like, so
a belief system.
Right. The Jedi Code is specifically in, like, an Grey Jedi were not Jedi who, like, used like the dark side and the light side equally and pulled and sort of operate in the middle. Grey Jedi were explicitly Jedi who did not follow the Jedi Code. They were Force users who were outside of the Jedi Code. That said, they are still Jedi. They are still like there's no like light side, dark side. There was some ambiguity in terms of how they often did, largely because they didn't follow the Jedi Code.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like some like balancing third option that, you know, allows you to do both and break the rules a little bit, like, or bend the rules a little bit. That's not what Grey Jedi are. How now?
It can be.
It can be.
Eventually.
I suppose it could be. But, like, for example, there's the Barandot sages in the old Legends. The Barandot sages are Force users, not Jedi. They're Force users who, like, use the Force to, like, sort of meditate, see visions of the galaxy, and to sort of enhance their own kind of, like, kind of like Tai Chi, for example. It's like Tai Chi. It's not. It is a martial art, but it's not really like. Its main purpose isn't for like fighting and that kind of stuff. It's about centering and balance and that kind of thing. And so like that's kind of like the Barandot sages. There's is it the Teras Kasi? I think there's so many different like that are not canon anymore. But so there's all that right now. What I think is interesting is that they're actually in the old Legends canon. There is a dark side equivalent to this as well, a Sith equivalent, because in
Darth Maul is.
In the Abeloth arc, Luke's son, whose name is Ben, Luke's son encounters a group of Sith that like they crash landed from way back in the Old Republic during like the wars, and then they basically were stranded there and sort of intermingled with the native people there and built their own culture based on like the Sith tenets. But you can make the argument that they are evil and they follow the Sith code technically, but the reality of them is that they are just a group of people who are very much a like might makes right meritocracy kind of society.
Yeah.
But they're not like a religious order.
Yeah.
And so they are and in fact they ally with the Jedi Order to take down Abeloth. And
they're Klingons.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Klingons aren't like super evil. They are all of the words that you just said also apply to Klingons. They just don't have space magic.
Exactly. And they glorify violence and combat and things like that, but it's not like because they're evil. It's just because those are the tenets.
Culture.
Their cultures. They're the tenets by which they've built their society. Jade, exactly.
Mandalorian vibes.
The Lost Tribe of the Sith is what they're called.
Yeah.
The Lost Tribe of the Sith. And it's a very cool concept, and I think that's very interesting. And the thing that I think is very interesting about the Sith, and this is why this is my favorite thing about Star Wars, is like why the Force stuff is my favorite stuff about Star Wars, is that if you actually look at the Sith code, the fundamental tenets of the Sith, there's nothing in that is fundamentally evil.
No.
There's nothing in that that's fundamentally evil. It's about
the Sith code. If may I read it real quick?
You could read it, or I could recite it from memory. But go on.
You want to recite it from memory?
No. I don't want to do it. I've already done this for two. You read the thing.
Yeah. So the Sith code is: through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken.
It starts with peace is a lie. There is only passion.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion.
Yeah.
Well. I wouldn't say that's evil, but that's certainly a stance.
It is absolutely.
It feels there's a literary movement that feels like that kind of
thing.
Like
Jedi can't have feelings, and it's like okay.
Well, it's interesting because Sith then take it further and qualify like strength and all that kind of stuff in a very narrow, defined way, and like and they say, oh well, anger and hatred and fear are the strongest emotions. Like, says fucking who? How are you qualifying this? Right? Like, it's an extremely narrowly defined, right? Like, you know, it's not to, I'm not out here to say like, oh well, the Sith aren't actually evil. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the core tenets that they base their whole order on are not inherently evil. It's just
Yeah.
a narrowly defined sort of narrow definition of their thing. It's the same thing that has the religious interpretation of cherry picking
Right.
certain things. The standard shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just in terms of all of this, I've just like been thinking a lot about like just culture stuff in general, and like I agree. Like I completely agree with everything you're saying, Lucas,
Mhm.
and I think that is actually like being reflected now in the TV shows, at least how they are kind of like using those things, because Ahsoka and Kanan and all of these people are
Yeah.
in fact Grey Jedi
Yep.
because they were Jedi before and decided to say either had to be forcefully removed or said "fuck you, I'm leaving," which is why Ahsoka did, and I love her. Anyways, and Ezra is kind of like the only Jedi currently that wasn't touched by the Jedi Order, other than the Jedi that either got abandoned or said "fuck you." So it's really interesting.
Right.
And he is also, as I am given to understand, wildly powerful.
He's fucking insane. He was able to do Force stuff before he even understood what that was. He could just like jump between buildings just cuz.
I so deeply appreciate the bit where Ezra hands Sabine his lightsaber. I think she's like, "Don't you need that?" And he's like, "No."
That was my favorite part in Ahsoka, where they're like, Sabine's like, "Take the lightsaber." He's like, "I don't fucking need it." She's like, "Why?" It's like, "Why?" It's like, "I have the Force." Duh. Kaboom!
Somewhere, Kanan's Force essence is like, that's my boy.
That's my boy. That's my boy.
That's my
Yeah.
boy.
And if I was in the Star Wars universe, I'd feel the exact same. Who needs a goddamn sword when you have telekinetic powers?
Yeah. The lightsaber has always only ever been a symbol. Like, it has only ever been a symbol. Even the Sith believe that.
Yeah.
I think what I said on Sunday was like, you don't like if a bunch of people run at you with guns and you can use space magic, you can absolutely space magic your way out of any situation in which somebody has a blaster. It's pretty much only useful against other space wizards.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the defense mechanism against other space wizards, and I will concede to that. But so like in terms of like the Grey Jedi thing, they're definitely doing how you have been interpreting it in the show, and also in the same with like the Sith, like especially in Ahsoka with like the antagonists in that show. I was so excited to see that their lightsabers were orange and not
It was
red.
such a good choice. It was such an interesting choice.
Good choice. Because they're not Sith. They are just dark Jedi.
Yeah.
But like they're Grey Jedi on the side of dark, not on the side of light, which is so interesting, and I loved that choice because it really just shows that the Force is a tool that you use and not a basis of morality. It doesn't like give you like, oh, the dark side of the Force and the light side of the Force. It's just the Force. You are just prescribing your own culture beliefs on how you use it.
Right.
And I like going forward, the key, like, and also the other thing about Star Wars, like what we know from like the 70s to now, is post the fall of all institutions that like have like everything that we know about how the Force works, how different things work, all of these codes and stuff is basically all like hearsay and legend that most of the people in the galaxy don't fucking know about. And so like when we're thinking of like, oh, these codes, or the Jedi used to do this and the Sith used to do that, is Palpatine even a Sith? Really? Because like he is, but like he killed every other Sith and said, I make the rules now.
So there's good reason for that. There's good reason for that. I can argue this one. I can argue that one. That specific point. But also, but first, I want to point out something that you said earlier, which I was like, yes, absolutely that. Which is the thing about like specifically you made a distinction of dark Jedi, and I think that's so important because that was like a real distinction before, right? Not every bad guy with a lightsaber is a Sith, right? Because they're only a Sith if they follow the Sith code, right? If they come from a long-standing tradition, which leads me into the thing about Palpatine. The rule of two is an important thing. It is again a religious belief. So whether or not this is actually true is wildly up to interpretation, but Palpatine comes from a tradition of Sith who believe that the dark side does not function well like in the same way that the light side does, which is that the more Jedi there are, the more powerful the light side becomes, right?
Yeah.
The specific rule of two,
Yeah.
I guess you could call it theology technically, but
Yeah.
the
But
idea,
that was, like, made by a guy.
right, the
Yeah.
idea behind it comes from the fact that they believe that the dark side does not function through cooperation or through strength of might. Even the dark side functions primarily through subtlety, trickery, and is most powerful when concentrated in one individual. But that one individual needs somebody to teach them to wield it, and therefore the rule of two: one to wield the power, one to the other to crave it, right? And that's the cycle, and so that's the cycle that Palpatine comes from. So yes, kills other Sith specifically because of that, because he needs to preserve that. Now, is that correct? Is it objectively true? We don't know, but that's not the point.
That's sort of what I was saying, is that, like, all of this thing of, like, the Jedi Code, or, like, what the Jedi were, and, like, what the Sith were, and all that stuff, all of the characters in the Star Wars that we know is so far down the line of cultural, like, bullshit that we can't, like, we're just being told what is right and true about what the universe is like, and it's like decades and decades and decades of, like, unreliable narrator of cultural bias. Which is really interesting in the Star Wars universe, because everyone's like, oh, these people are evil, these people are good, or, like, but, like, when things kind of turn it on their head, they're like, oh, this is culture. This is culture and ideology and theology, but with magic.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. And I'm curious if there is actual, like, there is, like, part actually things from, like, the dark side that actually corrupt you in the terms of powers, like the Force does that, or is that just emotional and social manipulation?
Right. And that's the thing, like, I think I don't know about now, but there canonically Ike is right that there were power, like, dark side powers that did corrupt you over time. That said, it's really anyone's guess as to where like, it's a sort of a chicken and the egg situation, right? Like, is the power corrupting you, or is your intention using that power corrupting you? And, like, that's that said, like, within in terms of, like, what we were directly told within the Star Wars, we were in the old canon, we were absolutely, Ike is right, that we were led to believe that there were powers that would corrupt you over the course of of their usage. Yeah, and I think this is a good point. Ike is making that. I think putting a real-world lens on a concept that George Lucas wanted, a world of good and evil, it's futuristic mythology. And that's totally fair. Yeah, and, like, that, I completely get that. I do think that the Star Wars universe and the concept of the Force is... And I think this is what is happening, which is basically what Bri has been saying this whole time, but I think it is being improved by the presence, like, the addition of, like, sort of, I'm gonna hate myself for saying this, shades of gray within the moral complexity of Star Wars, right? And I think that's very interesting. It was in so I used to play Star Wars: The Old Republic a lot, and my favorite, I loved maining a Sith warrior. Is my favorite. Their storyline is the coolest in my opinion, especially if you choose to go light side as a Sith warrior. Your story doesn't change dramatically. Like, you're still following the same storyline, but your story becomes that of a Sith who is not following the program set by the Sith Empire and the sort of Sith orthodoxy, or whatever you want to call it. And one of the, like, sort of coming to a realization, whether true, objectively true or not, is wildly up to interpretation. But a realization that hate and anger and fear are not necessarily the most powerful emotions, and the ideology that you in fact become stronger and more powerful as a Sith if you resist your base impulses, right? Because it's harder to resist those base impulses than it is to, like, sort of temper them. And I think that's fascinating. Like, I love that concept, and it was that was, I think, the first time that I really, like, truly, like, deeply thought about the implications of the different ideologies with Jedi and Sith, was playing a character in a video game that was a Sith who didn't really like adhere to. He wasn't just a dick on purpose for the sake of it will make me more powerful. He was like, is there actually a purpose to doing this? I don't think so. And I think that's very interesting. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I will make the point, Matt, that all of those Sith failed in the end. But and like, I don't know. It's like theology, and it's a weird theological discussion about a thing that is fantasy, and that's why I love it, because I love getting into those nitty gritties, and I just the idea of like the different like the idea that this Star Wars has been a thing from like the beginning of George Lucas's like first intent of it. Like, this is a clear good versus evil, fascists versus good guys. The little guy wins and evil dies.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been then touched by multiple hands over 50
Hundreds.
years.
Yeah.
Hundreds of hands
Yeah.
over 50 years. And that makes the Star Wars universe, it still harkens back to that good versus evil, but having so many different, like, having that so many different, like, perspectives on good versus evil makes it so much more of a, like, realistic human experience in terms of morality. And I don't know, and I think that is very, like, interesting as, like, a form of media that has been around, that people have loved and have opinions about, and differing opinions and the same opinions, that, like, you can still have all of those different feelings about Star Wars and still love it in different ways. And I think that's, like, the beauty of it in a way, where, like, people are gonna love different things. Like, some people love certain things about 7, 8, and 9. Like, I know Amity loves Rey. Like, loves that character, and I think that's beautiful, and like, if you get something out of any Star Wars story, it should be something to hold on to that you adore. And like, having anyone be able to take something from that universe that's been going for 50 years or more, I'm not doing the actual math, like, is,
Since the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, like 50 years is like super cool. Like,
yeah, we're
Yeah.
we're only like 3 years out from it being 50 years, so that's close enough.
Close enough. So it's gonna change and grow, and canon is going to be decanonized, and canon's going to write over other canon or expand other things, and you're gonna have a different interpretation of a thing than someone else is gonna have, and that's what media literacy is. And I think Star Wars is like a perfect, actual, like, living mythology organism to showcase that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I could have said it any better. Yeah, and
like the circle from like all going on 50 years ago to like post World Wars, like I think Vietnam era in the 70s. Am I correct about that? Vietnam. Cold
sorry,
War era?
say again. I was reading chat. What was your question?
I just think it's interesting going from like post World War II, like Vietnam era, like filmmaking, fascists bad, to now circling back around in this the year of our Lord 2024 to having Star Wars yet again being like, hey,
reminder,
fascists and corporate capitalism bad.
Yeah.
Which is yeah.
And which is why I like the new show so much. And also just always is bringing to light a thing that I've personally always believed, that the Jedi and Sith institutions don't need to exist. To, like, you can have...
It's a religious war.
It's religious. They don't have to exist. And, like, I think that having that be what is currently being played out in the TV shows is really interesting, with the introduction of the Grey Jedi, of, like, having different characters remember different parts of the Jedi Code and have that be more important, or then, like, knowing things about the Sith Code and picking and choosing what they enjoy about each of those things to create their own basis of morality and how they use the Force. Because whether or not the dark side actually corrupts you or not, or if that's just the seeking of power that inherently corrupts, as we know as human beings is correct, it's... I think there's a way to straddle interesting lines, and I love the way that they're playing with that in terms of just conceptuality rather than like I don't know whether or not like it's perfectly like in the bounds of the Star Wars universe. I think expanding on that is really interesting, and why I like Force lore really a whole lot, because I am a culture bitch. I love it so much, but there's also like other cool stuff in the Star Wars, and we don't have to keep talking about this Force stuff, because I know that like that is it's like so deeply in culture and how you see theology that everyone's gonna see it differently.
Yeah, well, I wanna go, because on a sort of related note, I will say, I respect your thoughts, and like what Bri was saying, Nico, about like there's just different things that different people can take away from Star Wars. I happen to disagree, Nico, with your thoughts that like the Jedi Sith stuff is like the least interesting part of Star Wars. I've always thought it's the part of Star Wars that gives it its identity. Because without, you take out that stuff and take out the Force and all that kind of stuff, Star Wars could be any other sci-fi setting, or pseudo sci-fi setting or whatever. I think it's where it gets some of its juice. I will also go ahead and say that I don't know, there might be, this is just me responding to Nico now. There might be a species of sentient spaceships that I don't know about, but I think it's likely that you're probably talking about living spaceships, which are either the Yuuzhan Vong, or there's also... I don't think their ships are living ships.
They're organic, I know that much.
Right, but I don't think that they are alive. They are grown, I think. But there's also the planet of Zonama-Sikot in the old canon. And Zonama-Sikot was a planet of like legendary shipbuilders whose ships were grown also and are made of seeds. But that also has a lot to do with the Force. Because the people of Zonama-Sikot are another great example of people who use, not necessarily in the same way that like Jedi do, but use the Force, and some of the core principles of it. There's a whole there's a book called Rogue Planet, by I believe Greg Bear. It was following Obi-Wan, Kenobi, and Anakin, and then it later came back in like some like with Luke Skywalker and those during the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Where they went to this planet and they learned about the planet itself was alive, where it had, oh god, I wish I remembered more about that book, but there's a concept called, nope, never mind, I'm not even going to go into it. There's a concept Force related called the Potentium, and I don't actually know what it is. At this point I have begun speaking entirely outside of my range of knowledge. But there's like a whole thing with like the living Force and the Potentium and the like all that kind of, it's different aspects of the Force where is, I wish I knew more about it, because if I did, I feel like that factors in directly to the conversation that we were having about like the different ways that like all right, Ike says, I would slightly argue your point with aesthetic. Star Wars is also known for its look, so its Jedi and the vibes is such a cultural cornerstone now that people can tell when sci-fi is inspired by Star Wars because of its aesthetic. That's absolutely true. I will absolutely grant you that. My thought is, though, that, like, I don't know that Star Wars, if it had never been in there, I don't know that Star Wars would have had that impact, is what I'm saying. I don't know that Star Wars would have had the same kind of impact that it does, where it, like, so many things are like aesthetically like derived from it and from its look.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there's no way to know this. This is what's called a counterfactual argument that I am currently engaging in, which is, largely deemed inadmissible in any sort of academic sense. But it's I think this is where we get into like I'm not arguing against your point as in like you're wrong, more just like this is my opinion because again I think there's no actual way to prove any of this in any meaningful way. So this is more just me sort of like this is a fun debate rather than like an actual like I think you're wrong.
This is something that I've been thinking about too, as we've kind of been like circling this, like what people find compelling and what people don't. And I think like the which magic is the good magic and which magic is the bad magic is not like the most interesting part. But I think I do think that like one of the hearts of the aesthetic of Star Wars is the mere existence of those like codes of honor. Like the whole, I would argue that a lot of like the culture and the universe itself, the way even down to the way it looks and acts, is built on like the kind of it is predicated on like the existence of the Jedi code of honor and like the Sith code of honor. I'm gonna call it here for brevity's sake. Like so I think that shapes the Star Wars canon on a fundamental level. And I think it's part of what makes it compelling is you have this like kind of cool, vaguely like retro-futuristic like sci-fi setting that also has elements of like kind of mysticism involved in it too, and that's what takes it from being kind of like a sci-fi story to being like space fantasy.
So what I think is very funny here, if we just because I gotta get one in here during this episode, so be ready on the command. Matt Colville, his definition of like like fantasy versus fiction, right? I think applies very strongly here because the idea of like his definition of fantasy is like being a world where or a setting where the world is sort of or the world is basically an outward manifestation of the character's internal conflicts, right? And Star Wars is a world where that has been made literally true. Like it is a diegetic part of the world, right?
The mere existence of the world between worlds.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I think it's very it's interesting from that perspective, and like the idea that there are, I think what we're talking about here a little bit is sort of the difference between the people who are more interested in the sort of fantasy aspect of Star Wars versus the people who are interested in the fiction aspect of Star Wars, right? And I think those don't have to be diametrically opposed. They don't have to be at all. In fact, they are quite compatible in many instances. But I think it's where we're talking about is basically the spectrum of Star Wars fans and where on that spectrum they land drastically changes, I think, which parts of it you're interested in, which parts of Star Wars you're interested in, or which fascinate you. And and this kind of goes back to my original point about Star Wars being better as like in like the sort of serial format, because what we are talking about is a world that can contain that entire spectrum comfortably with no real friction. That's not a world that can be easily contained in a feature-length film. Like, so, yeah.
It is interesting to me though, because like you do have, I think on one end of the spectrum is Andor, which has very little of like the mysticism.
Yes,
of the Star
absolutely
Wars present in it. There's like there's pieces of it that inform how the component like cultures and governments and individuals behave. Like it's still the Jedi. The existence of the Jedi and Sith and the way that those shape culture still influences that, but then far on the other end you have like the original trilogy or like Ahsoka, where it's like deeply informed and profoundly about the mysticism of and the mythology of the universe.
And here's where I will agree with Nico and Ike is I am not like the idea of like the conflict between the Jedi and the Sith. I'm very over that. When it comes to Star Wars, I'm very over that. So that's where I will agree with you.
Which is why I love the new shows. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And I think we need more stories where there are Jedi in them participating in events, but like not central to those events necessarily. Central only in the fact that they might be like main characters or something like that, but not central in that like everything is happening because of this war between Jedi and Sith, and it's a I'm done. I'm done with that. Actually, I don't need any more of that.
I really like it when the Jedi and the Sith are represented as two powerful players, but not the only people in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And so like we kind of, I think this is a good like place to sort of in the sort of last bit of our show tonight is sort of go make the transition into like what Ike was talking about, which is I'm over here frothing at the mouth about the Galactic Civil War and the tech and the worlds, because John, you brought up Andor, and I think that's a perfect that's a great way of like looking at it. Andor is just, in spite of everything that I have spent most of the rest of this episode saying, Andor is my favorite Star Wars media to come out in the new stuff, and maybe ever. I don't know if I can strongly stand behind that statement, but at the very least, with like the Disney Star Wars stuff, Andor is my favorite thing to come out of that.
Yeah, it's for me. It's so many things about Andor. Andor is so much of the Star Wars mainline like movies and episodes are about like the high level like philosophical conflict between good and evil and the battle within oneself against our baser instincts, and in a way Andor is still about the latter of that, right? It's still about the war within ourselves, but it's also very much about what it's like to live underneath the Empire when you're not a space wizard with a laser sword, or you're not buddied up with your friend who has a laser sword and can use space magic.
Yeah,
like like everybody in that show is just somebody.
Yeah,
and it's so deeply interesting to explore that world, not from the perspective of somebody who can leap buildings and throw things with their mind and feel the emotions of others, just somebody who lives here.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I thought was, I agree with what Ike said, which is Andor is great for me because I love seeing the stories about the little people during the war, and I think it's cool for that reason. It's also the reason that I actually liked Solo, because we got to see a side of Star Wars that had nothing to do with the great conflict. We got to see like the sort of seedy underbelly of Star Wars that we'd only heard about but was glossed over in any other like major film or whatever. But yeah, just stories about the regular people, but also still somehow managed to, like John was, like you were saying, John, managed to still be a sort of scaled down version of the like bombastic, over the top version of that same morality play that we see in Jedi and Sith. Like we get to see it because it's still like, what is the right thing to do, and is there a right thing to do at all in this circumstance? Like when you don't have the ability to just like move ships with your mind and like move faster than your average person and deflect blaster bolts back at your enemies, is there a right thing to do? Like when you're trying to win a war and are vastly overpowered. And I love that that's the question that they ask. So yeah,
and Matt referring to one of my favorite probably my favorite episode out of Andor, which is One Way Out. And there are two amazing monologues. One is that there is one way out, and the other is Stellan Skarsgård.
It's okay. There are many of them.
There's so many good ones. Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård's monologue that is essentially like addressing that directly, where he's like, I'm not a good person, and I had to come to terms with that when I decided that I was going to topple the Empire.
Right.
I'm not evil, but I'm not a good person, and I don't belong in the world that I am trying to make. And that is such an, like, tonally, that's it's so interesting fitting that into the big bombastic. Yeah. So what do I sacrifice?
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to play Star Wars Outlaws. I would, in order for me to stream it, I'm gonna need to upgrade like computer stuff because, yeah. But I would love to do that. Like I said, a lot of people felt like the shows were pushing towards rewriting canon for 7 through 9, but I think that was just a way for Disney to regain people's faith in the brand. There are a lot of clear nods to the history leading up to... Yeah, I agree. I don't buy any of the stuff that I've been seeing where people are like, oh, they're gonna, decanonize the new, like, the 7 through 9. Like, that's not gonna happen. That's not going to happen.
I don't think they're going to decanonize it. I just think they're going to rewrite certain things.
Yeah.
To make it, in hindsight, not as shitty.
Right.
That's sort of what I was kind of going for, like, oh, they're rewriting canon.
Right.
Or like how they did with the midichlorians. They're like, someone thought of this, but no, don't worry about that. Like,
that was a rudimentary understanding of something that we have. Yes.
Yeah. That's that sort of thing to things that happened in 7, 8, and 9. Like, because we know that they're, like, as people have been saying, like, the New Republic has to look like idiots to allow for the First Order to come back, which is its own thing. And just annoying. But, like, also, I think they're probably going to maybe make the First Order maybe not as scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like being like, oh, the First Order actually didn't do all those terrible things, so we just made them think that they blew up our base, but actually it was still Coruscant all along.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I think that they might be doing. I don't know. We'll see how they marinate. But, like, because they are bringing, like, the cloning guy up with, like, the cloning Palpatine thing, and that was, like, the thing that me and Matt were talking about, where, like, was it just because the clone was shit, or is it the dark side actually making him old and gross and terrible?
Right.
We'll find out, I guess. We don't know.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And, yeah.
Exactly. It's all just told to us, so we don't know what's fundamentally true and just what people to believe. Because, like, the movies don't explain things as well as TV shows do. So the TV shows can, like, get into the nitty-gritty while still giving the Star Wars, like, loosey-goosey fun, blah, 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 while explaining, like, the thing, like, while possibly explaining the, like, narrative incompetence that, like, the characters had telling that story of 7, 8, and 9 dependent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I still think I think there is a limited amount of... I think you're right, essentially, Bri, about like what they're going to be doing as far as like soft rewrite in the new stuff.
Yes.
I also think that the biggest problem with those movies was not the narrative aspects of them, and rather just like a lot of like big choices that we saw them happen on screen, and there is no way to recontextualize them that will make them okay. And so I agree that they'll be doing a lot of that. I think there is a limited impact that will have on the...
I agree. I just think there's, like, parts of it that I think that the writers might be like, we're just gonna put this over top and smooth out the edges.
Yeah, we're gonna absolutely. It's the kind of thing that's gonna basically be like written over and then largely ignored, and then if people are like, well, wait a minute, but in this it said this, and now you guys are saying this thing, and they're like, yeah, no, it's both true. Well, how does that make sense? Next question. Like
which is what they've been doing for Star Wars for 50 years.
Yeah.
Because again, a million people have touched it. So it's it's this whole thing, and like I don't know, that's sort of what I've been thinking, and like they already have like explanations of like why are the New Republic so shit? Oh, because they're being all of the Empire loyalists are being stupid and trying to fuck you up consistently, constantly, all the time, and you're too stupid and too trusting to see it. Anyways, but like, and like having like explaining a lot of other things away and like doing the cloning thing, and then like I don't know, this is just a thing that I realized, and again I've only watched 7 once, and so I don't remember, but when I watched the movie I was for sure convinced that they had blown up Coruscant because they said the seat of government in the galaxy.
Right.
I remember this, and then looking it up, it wasn't actually. And basically, they said the article that I read was that like the director of the movie in like an interview said, "Oh no, we actually blew up this system that was the New Republic's seat of government." I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what? Was
Yeah.
this? Did you actually say this in the movie? I don't know. I haven't watched it a second time, but I do specifically remember them saying the seat of government in the galaxy. So I was like,
Right.
they blew up Coruscant? Are you who said this was okay?
Yeah.
In the writer's room, who said that was okay? Yeah.
I agree, Ike. That's glaring past the
Yeah,
obvious
yeah.
idiocy of Starkiller Base in the first place. How fucking fast were those shots going to travel across the systems? Yeah, no, it's true. All of that was so much. Like, I think, man, I think that you could have easily done a lot of the same stuff, hit the same beats, and I know that they were intentionally trying to mirror the same beats as A New Hope with The Force Awakens, but God, they didn't need to adhere. The thing of, when you do that kind of thing, from a narrative perspective, from a writing perspective, when you do that kind of paralleling, the idea behind it works because at some point you deviate from the original thing that you're paralleling. Not following it point for point from A to B. And that's, I think, where their biggest thing was. Like, we didn't need a giant super weapon.
No.
Tell me, please explain to me what that added or would have taken away due to its absence in that story. Like, leaving aside the fact that there were so many other problems I had with all of that, the stories of the sequel trilogy. Leaving that entirely aside, Starkiller Base truly had no bearing on anything. It would have been the exact same movie had it been there versus how it had it versus, it having not been there. It would have been the exact same movie either way.
Wait, I didn't put it in The Rise of Skywalker. I put it in The Force Awakens. I said the 7th movie. Right?
Yeah.
7, 8, and 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9. 7 is Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, what are you talking about? 7 is...
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I said sometimes I think space stories try to go bigger to get scarier or more shocking. It's very common. I think that's like it's just that it was a fault, like from what Lucas said, of they wrote it and then somehow didn't look at what they had written and say, oh, we just rewrote A New Hope kind of beat for beat, and now we need to take the spherical battle super, like the spherical super weapon out of it and do something else.
Yeah. That's 100% what they did. It's just like they try to make it bigger and scarier. And
I think, what I think... I think would have been infinitely better, that would have fixed all of these problems in one single stroke that we've just been talking about, is the idea that, like, they explained better that the First Order is not as strong as the Empire. It controls a few select systems.
Right. What X said in chat, yeah.
Exactly. Second, that then they, instead of the big, scary, like, battle station that, like, destroys a whole bunch of planets that we did not see or care about or have any of the characters have any personal stakes with, instead of that, then just have in order to have the same effect of like shocking the galaxy into realizing how big of a problem the First Order actually is.
Yeah.
Have them show up with a gigantic fleet that came out of nowhere, right?
Right.
Like, and just like take over planets all of a sudden because they have a big ass fleet. Like that would have been served the same purpose and solved all of these problems.
Yeah. I completely agree. And like, yeah, the First Order, yeah, they just made it seem as scary as it possibly can, and it made so much of what happened at the end of the original trilogy feel like nothing mattered. It
Yeah.
just like, even if in technical context it wasn't the correct, that's not true. It just felt like, okay, so we're just doing it again.
Yeah. Well,
And that's, I think, the main reason why a lot of people have
sure.
that problem.
And look,
But there are some other problems.
it turns out I didn't have to shoehorn in Matt Colville in the earlier, because now we've naturally come into it, because he has a whole video that is about the sequel trilogy. Well, not even the trilogy, because I think only like 2 of them were out at the time when he made the video, where he's like just talking about the Star Wars films, where he very specifically said something that I don't know if he's revised his stance on this since then or not, but I think this is how I feel about the sequel trilogy, is that so much of the underlying unspoken thesis of the sequel trilogy, and this is the main reason I didn't like them, seemed to be, hey, you know that thing that you grew up with, that you knew and loved and came to like whatever. Well, actually, none of that mattered. And we're going to spend all of our efforts deconstructing everything that happened there, and also tell you that you were stupid to care about it. And that's how it felt watching those movies, especially The Last Jedi. I know it was a hugely controversial film. That was my biggest issue with that movie, is that the whole thing seemed to just be like, the whole thesis of that movie seemed to be, hey, everything you know about Star Wars is actually dumb and it's wrong. It's like, it's dumb and it's wrong, and you were dumb to care about it. And like, that's what it felt like. Like, whether or not that was the intention, that is the tone of that film, and it really soured me towards like any new Star Wars. And that's about the point where I started thinking to myself, maybe Star Wars just isn't for me anymore. And like, I guess that's fine, you know.
And then the new shows came out, and they said, hey, let me give you a hand. And it's possibly 100% a Disney PR move, where it's like, hey, we're actually good at this, remember? And I'm okay with that, because they actually hired good writers. So there's like, whether it's a PR move or not, they actually still invested in their time a little bit more than they did for those movies. So like, everyone loves Star Wars, right? Big flashy things. And then majority of people were like, what the fuck was that? And Disney's like, oh,
it felt like the people in charge of those films had utter and complete disdain for the fans, and it was on full display, is how it felt. But yeah,
and we're back to the point Ray made earlier, that Star Wars is better as a television show.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh god, Geek Outs. I would love to, but
talk about the inherent
Star Wars. Yeah. It's
the inherent flip of that, and all the characters were done dirty. I loved in Force Awakens, where it's like the implications of the characters, and then the continued follow up made me sad.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of this is I think this is what I said to a friend the other day, which was just that like, a lot of those characters had very interesting potential in their stories that was so just terribly squandered. There was a lot of great opportunity that they kind of threw away for a deeply derivative, like kind of homogenous story.
Yeah.
Glad that we got a girl Jedi. Like, that's cool. All like, there's a lot of them now.
Yeah, but
there weren't at the time. But like,
yeah, but give her like a cool internal journey, like all of a rich internal life, like
any
all of
arc,
the other ones.
Any arc whatsoever.
Any arc other than falling in love with the bad guy.
And also like an arc where she like, I know that there's a lot of people who really like Rey, but Rey's arc, if you actually like break it down, Rey had exactly zero agency in her arc whatsoever. She didn't ever do anything. She was just sort of like going along. Like, I also love the
A little
idea
bit
of
like a little bit like Luke, but then Luke had like the last half of the second movie and the third movie to kind of like.
Like Luke starts making choices for himself, like
yeah,
like especially in the latter two
Yeah,
movies of the original trilogy.
yeah. Well,
That's what I'm saying.
and like the thing for me with Rey is like I personally love have long before it was what we were before it was known what we were getting. I was like, I think it'd be cool if we had like a female Jedi led film, a Star Wars film. I said that forever. So that's not my problem with this. My problem with this is that I would rather have like not have a like female Jedi led Star Wars film than have one that is just there just for the sake of saying, "Hey, see, we did it." Right?
Right.
I'd rather have a character that is a character and not simply a like check on a box, you know? Like
I completely agree with that. Like, and how Odd said, she was made well enough for us to be able to imagine her potential.
exactly. Yes.
Like, but that's the kind of case for Finn and Poe and like all of the characters. They were given like a decent enough like intro where it's like, okay, I see where you're trying to go with this, and then the follow up was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think like they were trying to
Could
hit
have
some
been
of
so much better, and I am now going to headcanon you into being so much better because I like.
Yeah,
Your idea.
Rey's whole internal conflict arc was exactly one line from Luke Skywalker in the entire trilogy. And that was when she was meditating, she went to like that dark place and he's like, "You didn't even try to resist." That's her entire arc with her internal conflict. That's it. There was nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, at no point is Rey talking about how she feels about any of the things that are happening around her. At no point is she expressing that she is conflicted about what to do. There's, like... Yeah, exactly, Nico. Good characters trapped in a terrible script.
Yeah. I love Finn, I love Rey, I love Poe. I loved those characters in the first movie. That's what I will say.
Yeah.
I think it's a case of something that I feel very often about big IPs that come out of Hollywood, which is that it feels like when people make adaptations or continuations or sequels. Also, odds.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I just didn't expect it. Sorry.
Sorry, John. Continue. That just caught me completely off guard.
It always like feels kind of good or cool or interesting at the very beginning because they manage to capture tropically what's happening with those characters. Because like Poe is basically like the Han Solo kind of like playful, roguish type. Like Rey is like your stand-in for like the Luke Skywalker, like unprepared hero who like refused, like the classic hero's journey character, right? But then where they fall flat is like it just feels like every time writers completely fail to understand what actually makes those characters interesting, or like what actually defines those characters. They see only like those surface level tropes and they just play to those because you can make a bunch of things that like feel good in the moment, but then you arrive home and you open your refrigerator and the movie just
J.J. Abrams
refrigerator test.
J.J. Abrams is the king of that. That is literally, you just described a J.J. Abrams film. Sorry, Bri, continue.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say I'm not going to talk about how I feel about things like that, because that's in a different franchise, and we could talk about that for hours. I'm not going to bring it up.
Yeah.
John knows what I'm talking about. He stepped on my landmine, and I will be quiet.
No, Bri, you have to understand, it's the same landmine, it's just for different properties for both.
No!
I
hate Endgame. Continue.
Yes! I was literally, that's exactly what I was about to say. That is exactly what I was about to say. They fly now was a joke for the audience and not a line that made sense in the world because jetpacks have been around forever. Yeah. Also true. Yeah, J.J. Abrams is good with spectacle, not story, but he's also very good at making stories that feel good, even if they're actually bad. Because he knows how to make a story feel like it has come full circle through like cunning use of like the smoke and mirrors of callback, right?
Yeah.
And he's good at doing that. But when you actually look at it for like 2 seconds, you're like, this was really stupid, actually. There was not
It was just
a...
like it was really flat, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the on your left moment in Rise of Skywalker didn't feel earned. We could have an entire Ramblemancy dedicated to like what we felt was wrong with the sequel trilogy. We could have an entire Ramblemancy dedicated to what we thought was wrong with the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't think those are particularly all that worth talking about,
No.
because at this point we all know we've had the conversations
know.
with each other. We've had that conversation. I mean, I'm glad we had that bit of the conversation here and now, but like,
Yeah.
in general,
it just puts a lot of like of why we're so excited about what's currently coming out, because of what it predated it. I think is the important part.
Absolutely.
For this, but I will like compare to that. Like, I do really like Finn, Poe, and Rey. I love the idea of those characters, and I would love for the TV shows to like maybe do something about that. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know in what way, but like a Finn story could be really interesting. Story could be really interesting, or like Finn, like the movies aren't all back to back, or like there's downtime. He could go be liberating stormtroopers. That could be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just there's potential, and I think I see the potential in it, and I like the TV shows, and I hope the TV shows do something to make the sequel trilogy marinate better. That's all I want.
Calderon is also 100% correct. They were cowards for not making phone.
Listen, both of them were
true.
completely 100% on board. So
yeah, the actors were even in on it. Like, dude, these characters.
Oh yeah, I don't expect John Boyega to play Finn anymore.
I have heard that he is. I know that he said he was done. I have also heard that he said that he would be like at least willing to consider it. But I don't know how like verifiable that is. But
Jon Favreau wrote it.
Yeah, legitimately. That said, I will also say, I think I am very excited to see. I have never been that big of a fan of the Galactic Civil War era, and I will say that the shows have made me more interested in that era than I used to be. That said, I'm also really looking forward to what happens to Star Wars when we can move beyond that era of that galaxy and talk about what comes next. I am so interested to see, and I hope that's what they're building towards. Yeah. I know the strong pressures of capitalism are that they're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and milk it dry until there's nothing left, and then toss it because it's not working. But yeah.
I don't know. My hope for Star Wars, like, in the future, if they're going to, like, be doing Star Wars stories, if they're going to, like, keep, like, I don't want them to make anything post 7, 8, and 9, like, directly post, because I feel like that just doesn't, like, depending on how the TV shows go, at this current moment, I feel like that doesn't matter. I think what would be more interesting is jumping even farther in the future.
Yeah.
And being, like, here is, like, here's the consequences of these things in, like, a few generations to just kind of, like, for still the callbacks, like, oh my god, this happened, and then see how the galaxy has changed.
Yeah.
Because of all of the consequences of all of these things that have happened in the last 50 years.
Totally.
That'd be a great time to bring back. I was gonna say that would be a great point at which to bring back the Eldritch Force monster living in the world between worlds.
That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did in the old canon.
Grogu. Also, adult Grogu, please and thank you.
Here's what I will say, because we were like well over our time, but I will also say this. My hope is that we can build, like, Star Wars can build on what has been done here once they're done doing damage control for the films, because that really is what it feels like they're doing. Even the entirety of the third movie of that trilogy felt like it was just damage control of the film, and it was bad. It was badly done. And so all I will say is, like, I really hope that, like, that we get to see what comes after all of this.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars could do with a lowering of the stakes.
And that's why I think like going 50 years in the future
Mm-hmm.
could do that, because like you're so much farther removed from the Galactic Civil War, the fall of the Jedi, the Empire, all that stuff, and you have enough time for the New Republic to like be a government for longer than 10 years. Like, I don't know, like not just be like we're the beginning again. Like, give it something more, and like especially if we're finding out all of this like Force lore with Ahsoka TV show and all that stuff, and then the Rey, the Rey Kylo bullshit, all that stuff, how that reacts further in the future, and what people think then. I don't know, or go really far in the past and do the other stuff.
And like, look, I agree with Nico's. I think that applies to a lot of franchises at the moment. It's true. Like you look at the example for me is like yes, absolutely. But also like Supernatural was doing a thing for a long time during its run where it just the stakes kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and then at a certain point you're like, okay, there's literally nowhere else for them to go. What are they going to do? And then they did something incredible. They lowered the stakes. They actually brought it down a little bit more in the next season, and they kind of brought it, not grounded, Supernatural was never grounded, but they brought it down to a point where it was like, instead of raising the stakes, they just had a lower and lateral move with the stakes, and it worked. Like, I was like, all right, this show is done, and this sucks now. And then they did that, and I honestly thought it revitalized a lot of what was, good about that show. And I think, honestly, it's a narrative fallacy and trap to fall into, which is like, oh, well, the stakes were really high in the last one, so I have to, in order to keep things moving and interesting, I have to go even higher. It's like, nope, you don't have to do that.
Like,
no,
exactly.
Go smaller.
This isn't an MMO. You don't have to raise the level cap every single season, right? It's especially when you're dealing with speculative media like this, and especially with fantasy that is so much about internal conflict as like represented in an external way, right? There are so many ways that you can have low to medium stakes in terms of like the fate of the universe,
And just like as an example, what would have made a really interesting series was a series of Luke Skywalker trying to rebuild the Jedi Order post-Empire and like going around finding Force sensitives and whatever, and then the stakes, instead of being the fate of the galaxy, is like maybe there's somebody out there who's also hunting Force sensitives and like trying to like, I don't know, whatever, and so now Luke has to contend with that, and that would have been interesting. That would have been good.
Oh,
that would have
man,
been interesting.
Like that series, and it's like that you have your arcs are essentially like you have whoever's trying to like rebuild the Sith Order at the same time as Luke is trying to rebuild the Jedi Order, and then you have like another like breakaway section of people who were like taken into the Sith thing, but then they broke away and are trying to like make it into their own new different thing. Like that would be a fantastic show. I would love that. Like,
absolutely.
Not the fate of the universe, but the fate of these traditions and cultures, and like how are they going to change now after all of these deeply traumatic, societal level events.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, that was, I think this is probably our longest Ramblemancy episode to date.
There's just a lot to talk about.
There really is.
As I said earlier, there's so much to Star Wars to like. Everyone's gonna get something out of it, and everyone's gonna get something different out of it, and because it's that like transcendent of a media property. 47 years. Okay, I'll be accurate. 47 years, and hundreds of people putting their hands in it, of giving people like droids and cool world building and culture between light and dark, and just a bunch of different stuff, and like there's something to be excited about for any part of a Star Wars story, and you could talk about it for hours, and we did, and
well, we'll simply have to do more Star Wars.
We'll simply just have to do more Star Wars, and We didn't even talk about the fact that Hera has a child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want.
I know.
Anyways, I love him. That's
All
another
right.
reason why I want to go 50 years in the future. Grogu, that child. Go at it.
Yeah,
The world's the galaxy is not ready for that.
yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us tonight, talking Star Wars. It's always fun to talk about this stuff. Bri, thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. It's always nice to have you.
I'm glad to be here. My media literacy is out the wazoo, and I love getting weirdly philosophical.
Yes.
So thank you.
And Star Wars is like the best thing to do that with. It's so good.
Yeah.
It is.
Yes.
So, thank you for coming on such short notice, relatively speaking. For
It was earlier this week.
yeah.
Look, if you tell me before I make plans for Friday, which is usually in the beginning of a week, I'll be here. Why not?
Hell yeah.
Why not?
Awesome. We will again not be seeing you next week for Ramblemancy. We will probably be back the week after that, pending any unforeseen things. But yeah, we're still working on filming Tomorrow is Dead, the back half of the season. So as soon as we get that wrapped up, we will start talking about air dates for the second half of the season, and we'll let you know as soon as we do.
We have, I think, just a couple of episodes left to record now, so we're very close.
I think we said 2, right? There's 2 left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yep. The shit is officially hitting the fan.
yeah.
I'm so excited.
The fan is tired of being hit.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We will see you not next week, but the week after that for Ramblemancy. But if not, we'll see you the next time we decide to come roll with us. Good night and good so.